I stood there, frozen in disbelief, on my freshly mowed lawn, as burly HOA contracted goons ripped my brand new $1,000 solar panels off my roof. My stomach churned with a sickening mix of rage and confusion. Little did they know, I was the government investigator assigned to their case. Oh, the look on their faces when they discovered they'd just committed grand theft against the very person sent to shut them down. My hands trembled so violently I could barely hold the certified letter I'd just ripped open. Notice of violation blazed across the top in furious, bold red letters. The pristine, ridiculously named Whispering Pines Estates Homeowners Association demanded I remove my beautiful, energy-saving solar panels within 48 hours or face a daily fine of $100. I slumped into a kitchen chair, defeated, staring at the $11,000 receipt from Suns Out Powers On Solutions, still cheerfully stuck to my fridge with a smiley face magnet. Just yesterday, I'd beamed with pride, watching the installation team mount those sleek black panels on my south-facing roof. It was my first glorious step toward energy independence, my small contribution to saving this crazy planet. "This has to be a mistake," I muttered, my voice shaking as I scanned the infuriating letter again. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor, Bob. "Saw Brenda taking pics of your roof this morning. Everything okay?" Brenda Miller, of course, the self-appointed queen bee of neighborhood busybodies who lived 3 doors down in a spotless white colonial with hedges trimmed so perfectly they looked like they were made of plastic. She'd been giving me the stink eye ever since I dared to paint my front door a vibrant navy blue last summer instead of the HOA-approved subtle beige. Frantically, I grabbed my meticulously organized approval documents from my home office. There it was, Form 32B, External Modification Request, with the former HOA president, Mr. Henderson's signature, boldly dated 6 weeks prior. The HOA president himself had approved my solar installation. A sharp, insistent knock at the door made me jump. Speak of the devil. Brenda stood on my porch, ramrod straight in her pressed khakis and a polo shirt, the Whispering Pines Estates logo practically vibrating with self-importance on her chest. Her silver bob haircut didn't move a millimeter in the gentle breeze. "I see you've received our notice," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, completely skipping any pretense of a greeting. "I must say, those panels are quite the eyesore. The entire neighborhood can see them." "That's generally how solar panels work, Brenda," I replied, my voice tight with suppressed anger. "They need to, face the sun." I held up my approval form, waving it slightly. "Besides, I have permission right here." With a speed that belied her age, she snatched the paper from my hand, scanning it with narrowed, judgmental eyes. "This form is outdated," she declared, her voice like ice. "The board approved new aesthetic guidelines last month. All exterior modifications now require review by the Architectural Committee." My jaw dropped. I wasn't notified of any new guidelines. Her smile didn't reach her cold, calculating eyes. "It was in the newsletter," she said smoothly, "the one you apparently don't read." "Mr. Henderson approved this himself," I insisted, my voice rising in frustration. "Mr. Henderson isn't the final authority," Brenda retorted, her voice sharp. "The board votes as a unit, and we've determined these panels violate Section 8, Paragraph 3 of our community standards. No installations that detract from the harmonious appearance of the neighborhood." My blood began to boil. "Solar panels are specifically protected under the State Energy Protection Act," I exclaimed. "HOAs can't arbitrarily deny them." "Save the legal lecture," Brenda said, handing back my form with a dismissive flick of her wrist. "Remove the panels or pay the fines. Your choice." As she turned to leave, she called over her shoulder, Oh, and your grass is half an inch too tall. That'll be in next week's violation notice. I slammed the door, leaning against it with a heavy sigh, feeling the fight drain out of me. Just then, my phone rang. It was my boss, Sarah, at the State Energy Commission. Good news, she said, her voice brimming with excitement. The governor just approved our special investigation into HOAs blocking renewable energy installations. We've had dozens of complaints. Perfect timing, I replied, a flicker of hope rekindled within me. I'm dealing with exactly that right now, at my place. Really? Sarah paused. Well, I need someone to lead this investigation. Someone who understands both the technical and personal sides of the issue. Someone invested. Another pause. How would you feel about heading it up? I looked out my window, my gaze drawn to Brenda, who was now pointing at my house and talking animatedly with another board member, a sour-faced woman named Carol. A slow, burning anger began to replace my despair. I'd say I'm uniquely qualified, I replied, my voice now firm with resolve. Great. There's one HOA that's been particularly problematic. I'll email you the file. Whispering Pines Estates. Heard of it? My mouth went dry. You could say that, I managed to choke out. After hanging up, I opened my laptop to find an email already waiting. The file contained 12 separate complaints against my HOA, complete with meticulously documented evidence of denied solar applications and threatening letters. I spent the rest of the evening immersed in state laws and previous cases. The Energy Protection Act was crystal clear. HOAs could regulate placement and appearance within reason, but they couldn't outright prevent renewable energy installations. What Whispering Pines Estates was doing wasn't just mean-spirited, it was illegal. The next morning brought another knock, this time far more imposing. Mr. Thompson, the new HOA president, a tall, intimidating figure in a perfectly tailored suit, stood on my doorstep, despite the early hour. I understand Brenda spoke with you yesterday, he said, his voice smooth and practiced, the voice of a man accustomed to getting his way. She did, I replied, my voice carefully neutral, and I showed her my approved form, which you signed. He winced, almost imperceptibly. An oversight on my part, he admitted smoothly. I didn't realize your installation would be so visible. Solar panels generally go on roofs, Mr. Thompson, I pointed out, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Indeed. Look, we're not unreasonable people, he continued, his tone shifting to one of forced congeniality. The board is willing to waive the fines if you remove the panels by tomorrow. We can discuss alternative energy options that better align with our community's standards, such as, he shrugged, a carefully calculated gesture. Perhaps something less conspicuous. Ground-mounted panels behind your fence, for instance. My backyard faced north. They'd be useless there, I stated flatly. That's your technical problem to solve, not ours, he replied, his friendly mask slipping slightly, revealing the steel beneath. The point is, those roof panels are coming down one way or another. Or what, I challenged, my voice rising. We have methods of enforcing our rules, he said, straightening his already perfectly straight tie. I'd hate to see this escalate unnecessarily. After Mr. Thompson left, a wave of cold fury washed over me. I called the installation company, warning them about possible issues. Then, I emailed Sarah, requesting permission to fast-track the Whispering Pines Estates investigation. Her response came swiftly. Investigation officially opened. You have full authority as lead investigator. Document everything. A slow smile spread across my face. I set up a video camera, strategically positioned to face my roof. Then, I called Bob. Hey, can you do me a huge favor and keep an eye on my house today? I have a feeling the HOA might try something while I'm at work. Sure, but what's going on? He asked, concern evident in his voice. Let's just say not all is well in paradise, I replied cryptically. By the way, didn't you mention wanting to install solar panels last summer? Yeah, but the HOA shot me down, he said, his voice laced with bitterness. Said they were too industrial looking for a residential area. Would you be willing to share that rejection letter with me? For my records? Sure, but why do you— I'll explain everything soon, I interrupted. Just watch my house today, okay? Okay, he agreed, still sounding puzzled. At work, I meticulously compiled all the Whispering Pines complaints into a single, damning file, establishing a clear pattern of renewable energy denial stretching back a shocking 3 years. Then, I drafted official notices of investigation, leaving the delivery date blank. Best to have everything prepared, just in case. My phone buzzed with a text from Bob just after lunch. Brenda and Mr. Thompson are outside your house with a guy in a truck, taking pictures of your roof. I thanked him and texted back, if they leave, let me know what direction the truck goes. 20 minutes later, they're gone. Truck had Valley Contractors on the side, headed toward the main office. The HOA office closed at 5 p.m. I left work early, arriving at 4:30, my heart pounding with a mixture of apprehension and determination. I found Brenda behind the reception desk. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw me. We're just closing up, she said, her voice tight. I won't take long, I replied, my voice deceptively calm. I'd like to see the minutes from the meeting where the board discussed my solar panels. Those aren't ready yet, she stammered, starting to gather her things. When will they be ready? I pressed. When Mr. Thompson approves them, she said, her voice clipped. You'll have to come back another time. Brenda, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I saw you and Mr. Thompson at my house today with a contractor. What exactly are you planning? Merely obtaining a professional opinion on the aesthetic impact of your unauthorized installation, she replied, a thin, cruel smile playing on her lips. For the record, they aren't unauthorized. I have approval, I said, my voice rising. As I explained yesterday, that approval is no longer valid. I took a deep breath, trying to control my simmering rage. Let me be very clear, I said, enunciating each word carefully. If anyone touches my property without my consent, I will pursue all legal options available to me. Is that a threat? Her eyes narrowed. Just stating facts, I replied, turning to leave. Have a good evening. That night, sleep was impossible. I kept checking the security camera feed on my phone, half expecting to see an HOA demolition crew descending on my yard. Around midnight, headlights swept across my driveway. I jerked upright, my heart hammering, but it was just someone turning around. I must have drifted off eventually because my alarm startled me awake at 6 a.m. I immediately checked the camera feed. My panels were still there, gleaming in the early morning light. Relief flooded through me. Maybe my warning had worked. Maybe they'd decided to follow proper legal channels after all. I should have known better. The hammer crashed through my front window, sending shards of glass flying across my living room carpet like deadly confetti. I froze in shock, my coffee mug suspended halfway to my lips. 3 men in work clothes stood on my lawn, 2 of them holding crowbars. Behind them, Mr. Thompson pointed at my roof, while Brenda clutched a clipboard, checking items off with quick, satisfied flicks of her pen. What the hell are you doing? I shouted, rushing outside in my bathrobe, my heart pounding like a trapped bird. Enforcing HOA regulations, Mr. Thompson replied coolly. You were given notice and failed to comply. One of the workers was already on a ladder, prying at the edge of a solar panel. Get off my property, right now, I yelled, pulling out my phone. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Brenda smirked. Section 14 of the HOA covenant you signed gives the board authority to remedy violations. We're simply exercising that right. Breaking my window is remedying a violation? I screamed, my voice cracking with fury. Mr. Thompson, at least, had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. That was unfortunate, he conceded. We'll deduct the repair cost from the fines you've accrued. I dialed 911, my hands shaking so badly I could barely press the numbers. Yes, I need police at 147 Sycamore Lane in Whispering Pines Estates. People are trespassing and damaging my property. While waiting for the police, I filmed everything on my phone. The workers had already removed 2 panels, handling the expensive equipment with careless disregard. Those cost $500 each, I shouted. If they're damaged, I'll add it to my lawsuit. What lawsuit? Mr. Thompson's confident facade cracked slightly. The one I'll file for illegal trespassing, property damage, and violation of the State Energy Protection Act, I replied, holding up my phone. All documented. Bob emerged from his house across the street, jogging over in sweatpants and a t-shirt. What's happening? He asked, his voice breathless. I heard breaking glass. The HOA decided to remove my solar panels by force, I explained, loud enough for everyone to hear, after I specifically warned them not to touch my property. More neighbors appeared, drawn by the commotion. Some took out their own phones, recording the scene. Brenda noticed the growing crowd and stepped closer to Mr. Thompson. Perhaps we should pause until the police arrive, she whispered, not quite quietly enough. Absolutely not, he hissed back. If we back down now, everyone will think they can ignore the rules. The workers had removed 5 panels when police sirens wailed in the distance. Mr. Thompson straightened his jacket, a forced smile plastered on his face. Officers, he greeted as 2 policemen approached. We're simply enforcing Homeowners Association regulations. This resident installed unauthorized equipment. I stepped forward. I have written approval right here, I said, showing them the form with Mr. Thompson's signature. They broke my window and are stealing my property. We're removing a violation, Brenda corrected, her voice shrill. The covenant gives us this authority. Does it give you authority to break windows? One officer asked, his voice skeptical. That was an accident, Mr. Thompson said quickly. The second officer, older, with gray at his temples, surveyed the scene with a weary expression. I've seen this before, he said. HOA disputes can get messy. He turned to Mr. Thompson. Sir, regardless of your covenant, you can't damage property or enter someone's land if they've explicitly denied permission. Our legal counsel says differently, Mr. Thompson retorted. Then your legal counsel can explain that to a judge, the officer replied calmly. He turned to the workers. You need to stop what you're doing and leave this property immediately. The men looked to Mr. Thompson, who nodded reluctantly. This isn't over, Brenda muttered as they retreated. Actually, it is, I replied, pulling an envelope from my bathrobe pocket. I'd grabbed it on my way out, just in case. Mr. Thompson, Brenda Miller, as lead investigator for the State Energy Commission, I'm serving you with official notice that Whispering Pines Estates, HOA, is under investigation for illegal prevention of renewable energy installations. Their faces went pale. Mr. Thompson reached for the envelope with a trembling hand. You what? Brenda sputtered. The investigator assigned to your case, I repeated, unable to suppress a triumphant smile. Have been for 2 days. Mr. Thompson's eyes narrowed. This is a conflict of interest. Not at all, I replied. I disclosed my residence to my superiors immediately. They felt my first-hand experience would be valuable to the investigation. I gestured to the workers, loading my damaged panels into their truck. And you've just provided excellent evidence. The older police officer cleared his throat. Sir, do you want to press charges for the broken window and property damage? Absolutely, I replied, not taking my eyes off Mr. Thompson and Brenda. And I'll need a copy of the police report for my official investigation file. Neighbors had gathered in a loose semicircle, whispering amongst themselves. "You planned this," Mr. Thompson accused, his voice shaking with rage. "Installed those panels, knowing we'd object, just to trap us." "I installed them because I care about renewable energy and reducing my carbon footprint," I corrected him. "Your illegal response is entirely your own doing." Brenda's face hardened. "The board will fight this. We have powerful friends." "I'm counting on it," I replied. "The governor is particularly interested in HOAs that think they're above state law." As the police took statements, Bob sidled up beside me. "State investigator, huh? You've been holding out on me." "Professional discretion," I explained. "But now that it's public," I lowered my voice. "How many other neighbors have been denied permission for solar or other renewable energy?" He thought for a moment, his brow furrowed in concentration. "At least 7, that I know of. Eleanor on Oak Drive wanted wind turbines. The Jacksons tried for solar last year. The Patels asked about geothermal heating." "I'll need to speak with all of them," I said, a plan forming in my mind. Bob grinned. "I think they'll be very interested in speaking with you too." Across the lawn, Mr. Thompson was on his phone, pacing and gesturing angrily. Brenda, huddled with a small group of residents, the die-hard supporters of the board's strictest policies. The officer returned my copy of the police report. "We'll need you to come down to the station later to make a formal statement," he said. "Of course," I replied. I watched as Mr. Thompson ended his call, his face grim. "Do you happen to know a good window repair company?" I asked the officer. "My brother-in-law runs one," he replied. "I can give you his card." As I thanked him, a sleek black car pulled up. A woman in a sharp, no-nonsense business suit emerged, marching straight toward Mr. Thompson and Brenda. Even from a distance, I could see their palpable relief at her arrival. "Who's that?" I asked Bob. "Catherine Davis," he replied, his voice low. "Their lawyer. She's ruthless. Shut down every attempt to challenge the HOA for years." Catherine's gaze locked on me. She whispered something to Mr. Thompson, who pointed at me and nodded. "This just got a lot more complicated," I murmured. "Are you worried?" Bob asked, his eyes searching mine. I watched as Catherine strode toward us, her briefcase swinging purposefully. "No," I said, finding a strength I didn't know I possessed. "I've got something they don't." "What's that?" My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Governor requesting update on Whispering Pines investigation. Media showing interest." I smiled, a genuine, fierce smile. "The law on my side," I replied. My heart pounded like a war drum as I pushed open the heavy oak doors of the community center. Every head turned. Some neighbors whispered behind their hands. Others glared openly. Mr. Thompson froze mid-sentence at the podium, his mouth hanging open like a broken puppet. I was wearing my official State Energy Commission jacket. As I was saying, Mr. Thompson quickly recovered, his voice regaining its practiced smoothness. "This troublemaker has violated our—" I slapped my government badge and ID on the table. The loud smack echoed through the suddenly silent room. "Mr. Thompson and members of the Whispering Pines Estates HOA board," I announced, my voice steady despite my racing pulse. "I'm here in my official capacity as lead investigator for the State Energy Commission." I paused for effect, letting the weight of my words sink in. "Yesterday, you illegally trespassed on my property and stole $1,000 worth of legally installed solar equipment." Gasps rippled through the crowd. I spotted Brenda shrinking into her seat, her earlier smugness replaced by wide-eyed panic. That's absurd," Mr. Thompson stammered, loosening his tie. "We were simply enforcing our rules." "Rules that violate state law," I cut in, connecting my laptop to the projector. The screen filled with Section 714 of the State Energy Protection Act. This clearly states that HOAs cannot prohibit or restrict homeowners from installing solar energy systems. A bead of sweat trickled down Mr. Thompson's temple. We didn't know you worked for the government. Would that have made a difference? I challenged. Would you have followed the law if you knew I could fight back? No answer. I clicked to my next slide. For 8 months, my office has tracked 12 separate complaints from Whispering Pines Estates residents. Each time, you cited aesthetic concerns to block solar installations. Mrs. Jenkins, a quiet, elderly widow from Oak Lane, suddenly stood up. They denied mine last spring, she exclaimed, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and grief. Said it would hurt property values. Others joined in, a chorus of frustrated voices sharing similar stories of injustice and intimidation. Mr. Thompson banged his gavel furiously. Order, order, this is not an open forum. I pulled out my phone and played the recording from yesterday. Brenda's voice filled the room. The board voted unanimously. Those eyesores violated our aesthetic guidelines. Brenda jumped to her feet. He tricked us. This whole thing was a setup. I've lived here for 3 years, I replied calmly. I didn't ask for this assignment. But when my own HOA broke the law, stole my property, and then bragged about it, well, let's just say this investigation became personal. Mr. Thompson's face had turned an alarming shade of crimson. You have no right to record private conversations. Actually, our state has one-party consent laws for recording, I countered, my voice calm and steady. More laws you should have checked before breaking into my property. I projected photos of my empty roof, the damage to my lawn from their trucks, and a clear shot of my panels, stacked carelessly in Brenda's garage, courtesy of Bob, who had meticulously documented everything. Let me be perfectly clear, I continued, my voice ringing with authority. This isn't just about my solar panels anymore. This is about systematic abuse of power, and it ends today. The community center doors suddenly burst open again. A tall woman in a crisp suit strode in, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Catherine Reynolds, County Property Inspector, she announced, dropping a thick folder on the table beside me with a resounding thud. Based on multiple reports and evidence gathered over the past year, I'm serving official notice that all HOA board operations are suspended, effective immediately, pending a full investigation. One of the officers stepped forward. Mr. Thompson and Ms. Miller, we'll need statements from both of you regarding the removal of private property. Mr. Thompson's gavel slipped from his fingers, clattering to the floor as chaos erupted around us. You can't do this, Brenda shrieked, backing away from the officer. We run this neighborhood. Catherine fixed her with a cool, unwavering stare. Not anymore. I hadn't expected county involvement so quickly. My investigation had apparently intersected with Catherine's broader probe into HOA violations. As the officers escorted a protesting Mr. Thompson and Brenda to separate corners for questioning, Catherine whispered to me, "This goes deeper than solar panels. We found financial irregularities in their records dating back 3 years." How bad, I asked, my voice low. "Missing funds, suspicious contracts, unexplained payments," she replied. "Your solar panel situation just gave us the opening we needed." A hand touched my shoulder. I turned to find Mrs. Jenkins, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she said simply. "My late husband wanted those panels. Our electric bills are killing me on my fixed income." One by one, other neighbors approached, sharing their stories. Eco-friendly landscaping denied, harassment over minor infractions, selective enforcement of rules. A groundswell of support was building. Bob pushed through the crowd, his phone out. "You need to see this, he said urgently. "I've been documenting board meetings for months. Look what I recorded last week." He pressed play. On screen, Mr. Thompson and Brenda huddled with a man in an expensive suit. "Don't worry about legal pushback," the man said, his voice smooth and confident. "My company can't afford to lose customers to Home Solar. Keep blocking those installations, and we'll make sure your consulting fees continue. I looked up sharply. Who is that? CEO of Sunshine Electric, Bob replied. Our regional power company. As the full, sickening realization dawned on me, I felt the investigation expanding far beyond anything I'd imagined. This wasn't just an HOA breaking the law. This was corporate corruption. Catherine viewed the video, her expression hardening. We need to bring in the state attorney general, she said grimly. This crosses multiple jurisdictions now. Outside the community center, news vans were already arriving. Someone had tipped off the media. What happens now? I asked Catherine. Now, she smiled, a grim, determined smile. Now, we follow the money. The sharp crack of something hitting my bedroom window jolted me awake at 3:17 a.m. My heart racing, I cautiously peered through the blinds. The word snitch dripped in blood-red paint down my front door. I grabbed my phone to document the vandalism, then dialed the police. Fourth incident this week, I told the dispatcher wearily. 6 days had passed since the explosive HOA meeting. 6 days of escalating harassment. First came the threatening notes under my door. Then, my mailbox was smashed. Yesterday, someone had slashed my car tires. After giving my statement to the responding officers, I couldn't go back to sleep. I brewed coffee and reviewed the case files, now spreading across my dining table like a malignant growth. The investigation had mushroomed beyond Whispering Pines Estates to 5 other HOAs in the county, all with suspicious patterns of solar denial, all with financial ties to Sunshine Electric. My phone buzzed with a text from Bob. Check your email, sent something important. The attachment was a scanned letter addressed to all Pinecrest residents except me. Emergency notice. Your property values are under attack by government overreach. Emergency meeting tonight, 7 p.m., Mr. Thompson's house. Come defend your community. I forwarded it to Catherine with a quick note. They're rallying support. Her reply came instantly. Already on it. Stay home tonight. Don't engage. Easier said than done. By noon, neighbors I'd known for years crossed the street to avoid me. The friendly wave from the mail carrier was replaced with a hesitant nod. I'd become a pariah in my own neighborhood. I was documenting the paint vandalism when a black SUV with tinted windows cruised slowly past my house for the 3rd time. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. This felt different from neighborhood hostility, more professional, more threatening. My desk phone rang. It was Sarah, my supervisor at the State Energy Commission. We've received a formal complaint against you, she said without preamble. Allegations of harassment, unprofessional conduct, and conflict of interest. That's ridiculous, I exclaimed. I'm the victim here. I know that, she said quietly. But Mr. Thompson's brother-in-law is State Senator Montgomery. There's pressure coming from above to reassign you. My stomach dropped. They were trying to derail the investigation. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. I'm fighting it, but you need to be extremely careful. Document everything. Buy the book. Understood, I replied, my voice tight with anger and frustration. I barely had time to process this when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Brenda standing on my porch, alone, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Against my better judgment, I opened the door, keeping the security chain latched. What do you want? Her usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a raw, desperate fear. They're going to pin it all on me, she said, her voice trembling. Mr. Thompson and the others, they're setting me up to take the fall. Why tell me? I asked, my voice laced with suspicion. I'm the enemy, remember? Because I kept records, she said, her eyes darting nervously to the street. Every meeting, every decision, every payment. I'm not going down alone. Before I could respond, a car horn blared. Mr. Thompson sat in his Mercedes at the curb, staring daggers at us. "I shouldn't be here," Brenda whispered. "Tonight's meeting. They're planning something big, not just against you, anyone who supports solar." She hurried away, climbing into Mr. Thompson's car. Their heated argument was visible even through the closed windows. I immediately called Catherine. "Could be a trap," she warned, "or she's looking to cut a deal. Either way, we need those records." As twilight fell, cars began filling Mr. Thompson's circular driveway. From my window, I counted over 40 neighbors, far more than attended regular HOA meetings. My phone pinged with messages from the few allies I had left in the neighborhood. "They're talking about a class action lawsuit against you personally. Mr. Thompson says he has proof you falsified evidence. They're collecting $500 from each household for legal fees." The mounting pressure felt suffocating. Everything I'd worked for was at risk. My job, my home, my reputation. A gentle knock at my back door startled me. Mrs. Jenkins stood there, with Bob and 3 other neighbors I recognized from the meeting. "May we come in?" Mrs. Jenkins asked, her voice soft but firm. Not everyone believes their lies. Over tea at my kitchen table, a surprising counter-resistance formed. Bob had been tracking the HOA's financial records for months. Mrs. Jenkins had documentation of selective enforcement. Others shared stories of intimidation when they challenged board decisions. "We need to fight back," Bob insisted. "This isn't just about solar panels anymore. This is about community bullying." A text from Catherine interrupted us. "Turn on Channel 7 News now." We crowded around my TV as the anchor reported, "Breaking news tonight, as the State Attorney General announces an expanded investigation into alleged corruption between multiple HOAs and Sunshine Electric." Anonymous whistleblowers claim the power company paid HOA board members to block residential solar installations. The report cut to hidden camera footage of Mr. Thompson meeting with Sunshine Electric executives discussing problem homeowners and consulting fees for each denied solar application. My phone exploded with notifications. "Catherine." Brenda came through, turned over everything. Mrs. Jenkins squeezed my hand as we watched Mr. Thompson's face fill the screen, caught in the harsh glare of news cameras outside his house. The planned meeting against me was disintegrating as reporters shouted questions. "Is it true you received payments to deny solar permits? Did you authorize the illegal removal of a state investigator's property? Are other HOA boards involved in this scheme?" My momentary triumph evaporated when a breaking news banner flashed across the screen. "Sunshine Electric files for emergency injunction against State Energy Commission investigation." Catherine called seconds later. "They're playing hardball. Got their corporate lawyers claiming unlawful targeting of a public utility. They're demanding all our evidence and witness statements." "Can they do that?" I asked, my voice filled with alarm. "They've got friends in high places," Catherine replied grimly. "Judge Harrison granted a temporary restraining order. We have 48 hours to show cause or surrender our files." A loud commotion outside drew us to the window. A process server stood on my porch, papers in hand, while a news crew filmed from the sidewalk. "What now?" Mrs. Jenkins asked, fear evident in her voice. The doorbell rang insistently. Through the peephole, I could see the server's impatient face. "Now," I said, squaring my shoulders, a newfound resolve hardening my voice, "we show them what happens when they mess with the wrong homeowner." I opened the door as cameras flashed, accepting the thick legal document with steady hands. The fight had only just begun, and it was about to get much bigger than my missing solar panels. "Look at this." Eleanor's hands shook as she played the first recording on her tablet. My jaw dropped as Mr. Thompson's voice filled my living room. "Deny first. Negotiate never." I leaned forward, hardly believing my ears. You recorded all their meetings? Eleanor nodded, her eyes bright with purpose. For 2 years, they thought nobody would stand up to them. We stayed up until 2 a.m., watching dozens of videos. The HOA targeting families they didn't like, Brenda mocking homeowners behind their backs. But the worst came from a meeting 6 months ago. These solar panel requests are getting out of hand, Mr. Thompson complained to the board. I've spoken to my friends at Sunshine Electric. They're losing customers to these home systems. If we block installations in our community, they'll give us each a kickback. My heart pounded. This was bribery, actual criminal bribery. I called Catherine immediately despite the late hour. I have proof, not just of them breaking solar laws, but of corruption. By morning, Catherine arrived with 2 officers and a laptop. We transferred Eleanor's videos, the officers taking detailed notes. This changes everything, Catherine said, her professional demeanor slipping to reveal genuine shock. This isn't just about your solar panels anymore. My phone buzzed with text messages from neighbors. Brenda was telling everyone I'd invited government thugs to intimidate the community. I showed Catherine. They're desperate, she said, typing rapidly on her phone. And they should be. 3 hours later, as I made coffee, police cars pulled up outside Mr. Thompson's house. Through my kitchen window, I watched officers escort him to a patrol car. Across the street, the same scene played out at Brenda's. My doorbell rang constantly as neighbors gathered, buzzing with questions. Mr. Thompson and Brenda have been detained for questioning about corruption and commercial bribery, I explained, standing on my porch. They took kickbacks to block our solar panels. Bob pushed through the crowd. Is that why they denied my solar application last year? And my energy-efficient windows? Called someone else? Soon, 30 neighbors filled my front yard, sharing stories of denials, fines, and harassment. Someone ordered pizza, others brought folding chairs. What started as confusion transformed into a community awakening, finally standing up to those tyrants. Bob raised his soda can in a toast to finally standing up to those tyrants. As sunset painted the sky, a black SUV screeched to a halt at the curb. A man in an expensive suit marched up my walkway, ignoring the crowd. "Are you the homeowner?" he demanded, thrusting an envelope at me. I nodded, opening it, as neighbors went quiet. "This is a cease and desist letter from Parkview Legal, representing Sunshine Electric," I read aloud. "They're demanding I drop all accusations, sign a non-disclosure agreement, or face ruinous legal consequences." Gasps rippled through the crowd. I felt a moment of doubt. This was a huge company, with expensive lawyers. They think they can scare us into silence. "They think they can scare us into silence," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Not anymore." Eleanor stepped forward, tablet in hand. "I have videos of Sunshine Electric executives meeting with Mr. Thompson in his backyard, discussing exactly how to block solar installations." The suited man's face went pale. Neighbors raised their phones, recording his reaction. "This is harassment," he stammered, backing toward his SUV as dozens of cameras followed him. "You'll be hearing from our legal team." As his car sped away, Bob squeezed my shoulder. "What happens now?" Before I could answer, phones throughout the crowd lit up with the same news alert. A neighbor read it aloud. "Breaking! State Attorney General announces sweeping investigation into HOA corruption and utility company collusion across 3 counties." We all stood in stunned silence as the implications sank in. This wasn't just our neighborhood anymore. How many communities had faced the same corruption? Eleanor gripped my arm, her voice barely a whisper. "They're coming back, down the street." The black SUV had returned, with 3 more behind it. "Get off my property now," I shouted, as men in dark suits approached from the SUVs. My neighbors formed a protective circle around me, phones recording everything. The lead man raised his hands. We're not here to threaten anyone. I'm James Wilson, Sunshine Electric's new Chief Legal Officer. More legal threats? Bob challenged. No threats. James looked uncomfortable as cameras pointed at him. The CEO sent me to offer a settlement before this gets worse. That night, I couldn't sleep. The settlement offer sat on my kitchen table. New solar panels for me, money for the community, an assigned admission of wrongdoing if I signed a partial confidentiality agreement. I called Catherine at dawn. Can I trust them? No, she said bluntly, but I've spoken with the Attorney General. Accept their first gesture, but we're still investigating. This goes way beyond your neighborhood. 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind. Mr. Thompson and Brenda remained under house arrest, wearing ankle monitors. Sunshine Electric installed top-of-the-line solar panels on my roof at no cost. News vans came and went as our story made headlines. HOA corruption exposed. Homeowner turns tables on board. I received hundreds of emails from people across the state describing similar HOA abuses. I forwarded each one to Catherine, who added them to the growing investigation. On a crisp Saturday morning, workers replaced my garden fence, another part of the settlement. I supervised while sipping coffee when a car I didn't recognize parked across the street. A woman stepped out, looking nervous. "Are you the solar panel guy from the news?" she asked. I nodded cautiously. "I'm Laura Thompson, Mr. Thompson's wife." She glanced around, clutching her purse. "Can we talk? Privately?" Inside my kitchen, Laura's hands trembled as she pulled out a flash drive. Mr. Thompson kept records of every HOA in the county working with Sunshine Electric. Names, dates, payment amounts. He called it his insurance policy. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked. Tears filled her eyes. They promised to reduce Richard's charges if he testified against bigger players. But yesterday, Sunshine Electric's lawyers told him they'd make sure he took all the blame. The flash drive contains spreadsheets, emails, and meeting notes detailing a 5-year scheme across 26 neighborhoods. I called Catherine immediately. 2 months later, I stood in the community center as our neighborhood elected a completely new HOA board. Eleanor became president, with Bob as treasurer. Their first act, passing new bylaws protecting homeowners' rights to renewable energy. I spotted a moving truck outside Brenda's house as I drove home. Her husband loaded boxes while she directed him, occasionally glaring at the new solar panels now visible on 5 houses on our street. Catherine's car pulled into my driveway as I arrived. "Quite a view," she remarked, looking at my gleaming solar array. "The panels or Brenda leaving?" "Both," she laughed, handing me an official envelope. Inside was a letter from the governor's office, offering me a position heading a new task force on HOA reform. "They want you to do statewide what you did here. Protect homeowners from corrupt boards." The case had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. Sunshine Electric's CEO resigned in disgrace. 3 county commissioners were under investigation. Mr. Thompson and Brenda faced criminal charges for bribery and fraud. That evening, neighbors gathered in my backyard for a celebration. Children played on swing sets that once violated HOA rules. Gardens bloomed with native plants instead of the required ornamentals from the old guidelines. "I never planned any of this," I told Bob as we watched the sun set. "I just wanted to lower my electric bill. Sometimes the small battles lead to the biggest victories," he replied. As darkness fell, Eleanor waved for everyone's attention. "Breaking news," she announced. The screen showed Sunshine Electric's headquarters, with FBI agents leading executives out in handcuffs. Cheers erupted around me. A reporter on screen said, "Sources say evidence provided by a homeowner led to today's raids." Speech, someone called. Suddenly, everyone looked at me. I stood, uncomfortable with the attention. I'm not special, I said. I just refused to back down when they took my solar panels. That's exactly why we need you, Eleanor said, holding up a clipboard. The governor's task force is just the beginning. People across the state are asking for your help. I looked at my neighbors, people who barely spoke to each other months ago, now united against corruption. My phone buzzed with yet another message from a homeowner in another city facing similar battles. I started this just wanting clean energy for my home, I said, taking the clipboard. Now, I'm fighting for every homeowner's right to choose. Bob raised his glass. To the power of one person standing up. As everyone cheered, I glimpsed Brenda watching from her half-empty house across the street, her face twisted with anger as her influence crumbled before her eyes. This story demonstrates the incredible power of one person, armed with the truth and the courage to stand up for what's right, to make a significant difference. It highlights how seemingly small, personal battles can expose larger systemic issues and inspire collective action. It also emphasizes the importance of documentation, persistence, and knowing your rights. Has your HOA ever overstepped its bounds? Share your stories and experiences in the comments below. Let's build a community of informed and empowered homeowners. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of justice, resilience, and the power of everyday people.